William LaJeunesse.
The actual language will offer safe passage to the immigrants. That is the headlines in the afternoon paper that we just saw a few minutes ago, that he is guaranteed, or at least told the presidents of Honduras and Guatemala that he will offer them safe passage. We saw riot police earlier today. They backed down. We've seen maybe 500 cops here in their riot gear get in their buses and go away.
The migrants receiving help from sympathetic Mexicans, such as food, water, clothing, and rides in pickups, vans, and cargo trucks. Taking aim at Mexico's Pacific coast, Hurricane Willa, a Category 4 storm. Landfall is expected in west central and southwestern Mexico with maximum sustained winds of 145 miles per hour.
Precipitation, flash flooding, storm surge, and of course the very, very strong winds will be impacting that area. You could probably expect the outer reaches of the tropical storm force winds like later tonight, early Tuesday morning.
Hurricane specialist Dave Roberts is with the National Hurricane Center. Ahead of the midterms, Facebook is setting up a war room at its California headquarters to take aim at fake information. Fox's Claudia Cohen was in the war room.
We got a chance to tour this new war room, which is actually a converted meeting space at Facebook's Menlo Park campus. And we saw dozens of security experts and data scientists and engineers working around the clock to root out bad actors trying to mislead users about who they are and what they're doing.
Facebook criticized by Congress after Russian government-linked operatives used the platform to bait Americans in 2016. This is Fox News.
The problem isn't just not being able to hear or understand, or having to tell people to speak louder. Sometimes the frustration is having to repeat yourself too many times, or speaking so loud you're almost shouting. At Guam Hearing Doctors, we understand that hearing problems affect both sides. One of our goals is to help your hearing for those around you. Call us at 989-TEST to learn more.
It's important to have claims process that works for you. At Guahan Insurance Services, we make things simple and convenient. Same door you walk in to purchase your insurance is the same door you open to file your claim. We can't pretend that the car insurance claims process is fun, but we can promise a hassle-free and speedy recovery without any runarounds. For your home, auto, and business insurance, visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center on Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or give us a call at 475-1162 or text 929-SAVE. That's 929-7283.
Saudi Foreign Minister Adel Al-Jubeir sat down for an exclusive interview with Fox's Brett Baer to explain why his government's story keeps changing in the death of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi.
This, Brett, is the first step of a long journey. We are determined to uncover every stone. We are determined to find out all the facts, and we are determined to punish those who are responsible for this murder.
The minister saying it was a rogue operation gone wrong. A lot of police officers in the U.S. wear body cameras. Now thousands in one of the country's largest departments will take them off.
The NYPD has pulled nearly 3,000 body cams off the streets after one exploded inside a Staten Island precinct early Sunday. A police spokesman says an officer noticed there was smoke exiting from the bottom portal and removed it immediately. After that, the device exploded. The officer wasn't hurt. The incident revealed a potential for the battery inside the camera to ignite. The company that owns the camera says they're working closely with the NYPD to investigate the issue. Tom Rigotti, Fox News.
Gas prices are down. Industry analyst Trilby Lundberg of the Lundberg Survey.
Gasoline prices are falling. We have a nickel decline in the average price of regular grade to $2.92. In fact, there might be a little more to come. Crude oil prices have dropped, and refiners are passing through these drops into the wholesale gasoline market.
Analysts say the crude prices are now below $70 a barrel, a $6 drop from earlier this month. Democratic U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren again talking about her DNA test and Native American status. The results of that DNA test show that Senator Warren is about 1/1000th Native American. The senator was in a debate against Republican State Rep Jeff Deal, saying she had the test because trust in government is at an all-time low. She wants to be transparent. I'm Ann Carrick, Fox News.
30 years ago, I moved to Guam from the Philippines to make a better life for my family. I work hard every day. We struggled, but I was happy to do it for my kids. I will do anything to protect my family, but I don't feel safe. I don't see police patrolling the villages like I used to. Guam is not the same. Criminals are getting braver because they know we don't have enough police officers. The Lieutenant Governor says public safety is a priority. He's been in the office for 8 years and had the chance to do something to make us safer, but he didn't. I'm tired of empty promises. I want someone who's going to get the job done. That's why I'm voting for Lou and Joss. Sa Nobyembre 6, ako po ay boboto para kay Lou at Joss. At inaanyahan ko po kayong lahat na maniwala na mayroon tayong karapatan na maramdaman na ligtas ang pagboto sa kanila. Ako po si Bobby Gopez. Maraming salamat po.
I'm Lilian Guerrero and I approve this ad.
Paid for by the committees to elect Leon Guerrero Tenorio, Tony Sanford, Treasurer.
Jeff's Pirates Cove, open daily at 8 a.m. and serving up hot breakfast with endless coffee and a taste of history.
What are the benefits of switching to the handset payment option with GTA? For starters, you can customize a plan that matches your budget and lowers your monthly payment. HPO lets you upgrade to the latest phones whenever you want. No more waiting for a contract to end to get that slimmer, faster smartphone. Because with HPO, there are no contracts. HPO lets you design a phone plan that suits you. So join the thousands who've already switched to HPO, the most customizable phone plan on island. Limited time offer. Terms and conditions apply.
Call the experts at Guam Hearing Doctors if you're worried about your hearing. The evaluation is simple and painless.
If you can dream uncommon design and unprecedented engineering, you define the 2018 Lexus. The boldly designed IS Sport Sedan's aggressive design stimulates the senses.
Advanced paddle shifting puts the exhilarating performance of the IS Sport Sedan at your fingertips. With deep, luxurious seating, the ES350 offers an ultimate level of comfort, while cutting-edge engineering delivers a thrilling drive.
Put yourself in a 2018 Lexus.
Now with special incentives.
At Atkins Kroll.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Sanford Technology Group, STG, delivering service that can't be beat.
Meet all the candidates up close and personal and find out why they deserve your vote. On Saturday, October 27th, you can meet them face-to-face during Micronesia Mall's one-on-one with the candidates. From 1 to 4 p.m., you can ask the tough questions, exchange views, express your concerns, or just get to know your candidates better. Hosted by Ray Gibson and broadcast on 93.3 The Point with the Facebook Live feed courtesy of Shooting Star Productions. Go one-on-one with the candidates. Saturday, October 27th, only at Micronesia Mall.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And you know that we stand up for that every day. So that's how we kick off another thrilling ride on the Tall Tales Starship. And I want to welcome aboard Linda, Juanita, Dave, Brad, Albert. Here we are. Welcome back. And to our international radio listening audience, if you have an overpowering desire to call Tall Tales, 888-TALK, 888-8255. If you are somewhere in the North American numbering plan, add a 671 to that, 671-888-8255. And for our international radio listening audience, the country code for the United States of America is 1. So that would make it 1-671-888-8255. And, of course, for our Facebookers, Linda, welcome on board. For our Facebookers, you know how to get there, and comment to your heart's desire, because oftentimes the comments become part of the subject of the show. I try to glance at my screen here from time to time and incorporate what you're saying into the endless stream of consciousness emanating from under my mustache. So you kind of have a chance to be a part of the show if you so desire. So you got two shots at kind of being a talk shower yourself. You can post on Facebook, or you can call our phone number. If you call the phone number, it makes it a lot easier on the host, because that means I don't have to sit here and jabber for 2 solid hours. Not that I can't do it, not that I haven't done it lots of times, not that I haven't done it lots of times when I didn't even have a microphone in front of me. But I think it adds another dimension to the show when our callers, who tend to be some of the most intelligent people who have access to telephones, when they call in. So starting right out, Brad poses a question. Bob, do you happen to know Alicia Limtiako's stance on the abortion issue? It's interesting, to say the least, that she is the only candidate for governor, lieutenant governor, who has had their name removed. Knowing what I know about attorneys, they tend to regularly lean left, and left generally supports abortion. If it doesn't happen to be fully pro-life, that could create a problem for Frank in the argument that he's making versus Lou. If you are unable to answer, maybe Ken could call and talk about the issues instead of the election process. When you say that she had her name removed, I can't understand what that means. Removed from something. Anyhow, as far as I know, Alicia is a member of the Believe team, and that they are anti-abortion. We try to avoid terms, euphemisms like pro-life and pro-choice here on Tall Tales. As often as we can, we try to use language in the fashion that best communicates the ideas that the word is emblematic, or the words are emblematic of, as opposed to sort of camouflaging them behind euphemisms. So as far as I know, Alicia is, but believe it or not, contrary to some of my posturing here on Tall Tales, I don't know everything. In fact, I've invited folks to call in and tell me that I didn't know what I didn't know what I was talking about on those occasions when I don't. Kind of takes us back to the Emperor's New Clothes and Governor Calvo, doesn't it? So we'll be coming back to the abortion issue on the card, Brad, and maybe someone could add in, or can jump in with the answer to your question at that time. So here we go with the Daily News. This, I don't know how to reduce this, or how to do a graphic for this with my blue pencil, but maybe you can show me at the end of what we call Zemi Ikotny, which the real Joe Cruz takes as his cue to play the theme music from Meet the Press, because that's exactly what we're doing right now. We're pressing the meat, Zemi Ikotny, or we're meeting the press. We compare the editorials of the two newspapers, and we, meaning me, meaning the editorial judgment board of the Tall Tales think tank, decide which of the editorials is the most edgy, hard-hitting, relevant, topical, exciting, etc., and that editorial will be blessed with the coveted blue star. I have my blue pencil right here. Now, sometimes there's a downside risk. I have given the editorials from our papers Fs. The other day, they were a couple of feel-good editorials, so to the best I could, I drew a heart on the papers instead of a star. But anyhow, help me with the graphic on this one. Our view, uncertainty of storm track means you should prepare now. There is still much uncertainty with the exact track of the system over the next 2 to 4 days, as different models indicate that the center of the storm system could track anywhere from Guam to north of Saipan. The Guam Homeland Security Office of Civil Defense, stated in a Sunday morning announcement, some models indicate that it may even pass east of the Marianas Islands. It is unknown at this time how strong it will be and the exact location in or near the Marianas it is expected to pass. Well, only 42 days have passed since Typhoon Mangkhut blasted the region with wind and rain. It's time to clean up, stock up, and gather important documents once again. And then here's a laundry list of things that you must do. Like check your emergency kit for supplies and make sure you got batteries for your flat, Most importantly, stay up to date with forecasts, conditions, often change between forecasts, etc. So the teachable moment here is that uncertainty of the storm track means you should prepare now, not wait until the wind has started to blow really hard. So here's the help I need with the graphic that I want to put on this piece of paper. See who can tell me how to do this with a stubby pencil on a piece of paper. Are you ready? Here it goes. Meaning, wow, if I hadn't read this editorial, I'd have never thought of these things myself. We don't have enough experience with storms to know that we need to start our preparation before the storm gets here. So here we go. So I wonder who's going to rise to the challenge here as to how I can reduce that to some sort of a graphic. Okay, Brad is back, and he's given me a link here. Let's see what happens if I click on this link. The Catholic Pro-Life Survey for General Election Candidates. Oh, I see what you mean by had her name removed. Yeah, not a good sign, because it shows the Democrat candidates, Lou and Josh, are, let's see, would you support a legislative bill that would restrict abortion on Guam by making it illegal to perform abortions on unborn babies once the unborn baby has reached the gestational age of 20 weeks or older? Lou and Josh, no. Ray and Tony, yes. Frank Uggan, yes. Alicia Lemtiako's name isn't there. Well, I can only speculate here, and that maybe I shouldn't, but I can't resist. I love to speculate on what people's motives are, but we'll see if we can't get a definitive answer on this. But early on, Brad, you said that Alicia is a lawyer, and lawyers tend to go to the left. Well, some lawyers do, I guess. Not all, though. I would count myself as something of an exception. But here, this could be what is going through Alicia's head. The signature opinion on abortion was called Roe versus Wade. And everybody who talks about abortion says, well, Roe versus Wade this and Roe versus Wade versus that, etc. And Roe versus Wade came up, and Roe versus Wade was a horrible decision. Even people who are pro-abortion would admit that it's a terrible decision to come from the highest court, from any court. And it's written by Justice Blackmun, who has been kind of denoted as a lightweight before and certainly since that decision. And Blackmun's background, he worked in the hospital industry in the Twin Cities. Old-timers would remember that Blackmun and Berger were both from the Twin Cities, and they were referred to as the Minnesota Twins, Minneapolis and St. Paul. Anyhow, Blackman said divided or addressed the matter of abortion by dividing the period of human gestation into 3 trimesters. And roughly speaking, during the first trimester, it was fairly easy for a woman to get an abortion. During the second and third trimesters, the state's interest was recognized as having an important role in that process. Well, that was 1973. Sometime, I can't remember exactly when it was, sometime in the 80s, a case called Planned Parenthood versus Casey came along, and that's really the law of abortion right now. And Planned Parenthood versus Casey said that instead of 3 trimesters, the tipping point is the time when a baby could survive outside the mother's body. And conventional wisdom now holds that that would be at the 24th week of gestation. And there are some cases that hold that. Of course, the way science is going, that age is going to keep moving towards younger and younger as time goes on. But right now, as I understand it, it's 24 weeks. So it may very well be that Alicia is saying, anti-abortion as I am, as a lawyer, I don't want to be seen supporting something that, under the current law, is unconstitutional. I don't care too much for that argument because right now we're talking about abortion that is unconstitutional everywhere because of the politicians in black robes. But I'll see what I can find out about why Alicia's name is not listed on that survey. I've seen that survey before, and I didn't notice that, but that's an important point. And it's something that could hurt the Ogden-Olympiaco team because a lot of people will pay a lot of attention to that particular survey. As Brad says, the senatorial candidates, if they didn't want to answer, there was no comment or no answer given next to their name in the questionnaire. But she is mysteriously absent, mysteriously, completely absent. So sharp eyes, Brad. Good point. Making that part of the conversation a little bit more interesting. Okay, and let's see here. I've got Ken LG on the phone, who perhaps could shed some light on this riddle. Hello, Ken.
Actually, it's Tim, Bob.
It's Tim LG. Oh, it's
probably. I don't know why every time I say Tim, people hear Ken or whatever. But anyway.
Well, it's probably Tim Rohr, and we had a guy. We have to kind of pool our resources on these phone calls, because
I see.
Because one time we had a guy call in whose name was Tom. What was his name, Real Joe Cruz?
His name was Tom Poole, but I called him Tom Toole, and my hearing's not as good as it should be.
Okay, so who we have on the phone now is...
We have Kim.
Tim.
No, Kim, K-I-M.
No, Tim, T-I-M.
Is it Tim?
Yeah, this is Tim.
I need to go to Guam Hearing Doctors.
Next time I call it, I will say Timothy.
On your way to Jeff Pirates Cove, stop at the Guam Hearing Doctors, Real Joe Cruz. So go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I'm going to take a little bit of blame for why this survey is kind of not clear, and maybe why Alicia didn't answer, and only because I was asked to review the question, and I just was curious myself, and I went back and looked at it. And the question is actually a full-page document explaining everything about pain-capable, the baby can feel pain. But the final question completely eliminates the word pain, anything to do with pain, and just limits abortion to 20 weeks. So it's like the question is actually disjointed from the rest of it. So just banning abortion at 20 weeks for making it 20 weeks makes it clearly unconstitutional. If it had been about pain, it seems like almost in every state where it was pain-capable legislation, and pain was the reason for passing the bill. It's passed everywhere. But unfortunately, the way the question was asked on that survey did not mention pain at all. It only mentioned 20 weeks.
So I don't know if you heard my speculation on why Alicia's name is not there, but my suspicion was, Tim, that she didn't want to sign up for something that she knows is currently unconstitutional.
That's correct. That's why I called in, and I'm not blaming anybody because I was asked to look at the survey too, but I didn't spend enough time studying it, and unfortunately, and then this is also why the bill failed, and because they started out talking about pain capable and then got into nothing else for 20 weeks. So so that's why I would understand. So unfortunately, the question doesn't give us a clear shot at what we're really aiming at. Would you ban abortion? Ban abortion at 20 weeks based on scientific evidence that the baby can feel pain? That's the way the question should have been asked, but I'll take some of the blame for that.
Okay, Tim. Well, thanks for the clarification. And when you say the bill didn't pass, you want to tell us what you mean by the bill?
Okay, so the actual questionnaire actually references a bill, I forget the number, that was introduced by Senator Dennis Rodriguez, and I don't know, a while ago anyway, and it had the same problem. It just focused on banning abortions on 20 weeks and not on the reason for banning abortions at 20 weeks. And so, as far as I know, the bill was sent back to committee. It was overhauled, but then it never went anywhere after that.
Okay.
That's all I know about that.
Okay. Well, thanks for the clarification, Tim.
Anytime.
Okay. So there's your answer, Brad, and it's unfortunate if the reason that Alicia's name doesn't appear is for the reason that Tim mentioned, because that will give some people a false impression as to where she stands on that particular issue. Rico Blancafor is on board, and can I hear you now? I can see you, as I can see Therese Tenorio, and right now I'm listening to the real Joe Cruz play Dave Brubeck's, a different version of Dave Brubeck's Take 5, so I've got to take a short break, and we'll be back and finish up Demi E. Cotney, and then we'll go to the card featuring Deacon Tenorio versus Lou Leon Guerrero. That's going to be fun.
I'm John Gibson. This is My Word. In the Atlantic magazine, writer Alex Madrigal noticed something changing in our society. It wasn't that long ago when the phone rang in the house, everybody rushed to answer it. If you missed a call by not picking up quickly, you had no idea what you missed. It could be a relative, it could be an emergency, it could be somebody calling, giving you money. Before caller ID, before answering machines, picking up a ringing phone was a must. But as Mr. Madrigal has noticed, not so much anymore. The habit of answer the phone is quickly fading. Let it go to voicemail. I'll get it later. I'm busy right now. All of that has contributed to what would have been unthinkable just a generation ago, now a widespread attitude that the phone does not need to be answered. Of course, part of the reason is the phones we have today. They do way more than just give us phone conversations, and therefore actual conversations, human voice to human voice, are just one more feature, and to many people, maybe not even the most important feature. The days when a ringing phone was a call to action are gone. Sure, there's a reason for this change in our habits, and yes, it's telemarketers and robocalls, billions of those automatic calls every month. Nowadays, when the phone rings, we tend to regard the ring with suspicion and hesitation, and that is new. I'm John Gibson. That's my word.
30 years ago, I moved to Guam from the Philippines to make a better life for my family. I work hard every day. We struggled, but I was happy to do it for my kids. I will do anything to protect my family, but I don't feel safe. I don't see police patrolling the villages like I used to. Guam is not the same. Criminals are getting braver because they know we don't have enough police officers. The Lieutenant Governor says public safety is a priority. He's been in the office for 8 years and had the chance to do something to make us safer, but he didn't. I'm tired of empty promises. I want someone who's going to get the job done. That's why I'm voting for Lou and Joss. Sa Nobyembre 6, ako po ay boboto para kay Lou at Joss. At inaanyahan ko po kayong lahat na maniwala na mayroon tayong karapatan na maramdaman na ligtas ang pagboto sa kanila. Ako po si Bobby Gopez. Maraming salamat po.
I'm Lilian Guerrero, and I approve this ad.
Paid for by the committees to elect Leon Guerrero Tenorio, Tony Sanford, Treasurer.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Well, let me wrap up Meet the Press here, and then we'll go to Lulian, as you were, Deacon Tenorio versus Lulian Guerrero, more on the topic of abortion. So the Post editorial, while drug problem persists, we can't take safety for granted. This is another one of those that I probably wouldn't have been able to figure out for myself had I not read this editorial. Sometime between the night of June 15 and the early hours of June 16, the teen, and that's what was her name? Timika Jadine Nauta. The teen was startled when she saw the alleged burglar in her bedroom. He allegedly slashed her several times with a sharp blade, including to her neck, according to court documents. The court document states this defendant told police after being confronted with Timika's death that he acknowledged, quote, his addiction to methamphetamine. The court document states the defendant told police that he wouldn't commit burglaries, but when he uses methamphetamine, he does things he wouldn't otherwise do. The document further alleges in the same time frame in and around Chalancoda area in Dededo, not far from Astumbo Elementary and Astumbo Middle, certain houses were burglarized. Items such as hundreds of dollars worth of yard equipment and a piggy bank with $25 in it were among goods taken. And Acosta is accused of stealing them as a part of a string of burglaries, including at the home of the teen. Timika Nauta died following her circumstance of having been a neighbor to Acosta. And then the punchline here in the next page. Our government must do more to get rid of the drug problem on our island. Drug dealers should be given the full punishment allowed by law. In the meantime, we need to secure our homes from intruders. We need to be alert and keep our personal safety in mind when we're outside our homes. We can't take our safety for granted, etc. Well, it's hard to argue with anything that the Post says here, and I guess the call to action is a call to judges that sentence defendants for crimes committed that have a methamphetamine dimension, and the Daily News is saying, throw the book at them. Hard to argue with that posture. So, weak as it was, the Post editorial once again gets the coveted blue star, and I haven't seen any suggestion as to how I could put that palm to forehead feature on the daily news editorial, so I guess I'll just take a crack at it myself. If I could do emojis here, there's probably an emoji that does that, but that's the best I can do. Yeah, well, I went to law school, not art school, so that is a first. There should be a name for that particular gesture other than palm to forehead, like that. So much for Zemi Ikutni. And put that one aside, and then we go to the card. And I've got, in addition to Les Paul Gibson versus Chet Atkins Fender, of course, I've got Tican Tenorio versus Lulian Guerrero, Tom Fisher versus the Guam Election Commission, the Attorney General, and K-57, and Pat Seville. Tom Fisher is quite a fighter, isn't he? He's on the card in several bouts. I've got Andre Bainum versus the Civil Service Commission, and possibly Curious Kin. I've got Chamorro versus Chamorro, because I know how interested the real Joe Cruz is in that particular item. I've got Hills versus Weir, which I haven't really finished up. And I've got Evelyn Duenas versus the Guam Regional Transit Authority, which, threaten as I might, I still haven't gotten to yet. Of course, this is a issue-oriented talk show, so you folks out there in our international radio listening audience can pretty much take this show wherever you want to go, because we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. Welcome aboard, Lady D and Therese Tenorio. So remember, 888-8255, and starting out with a story that appeared in the Post on Saturday, and it's called Protesters Oppose Abortion. And there are two pictures. There's a picture of a lady in a wheelchair holding up a sign that's difficult to read unless you're reading this. Read it on your iPad, and that way you can open up do a reverse pinch on your screen and enlarge the size of the image. It's a lady named Mary Espinosa, and then there are, let's see, 6 people standing with signs in addition to Mary, and they're standing at the corner where the Bank of Guam is located at the junction of Route 4 and Pope John Paul Street. And they all have anti-abortion signs, which are a little bit difficult to read in the paper. But if you do enlarge that picture, either on your desktop or on your laptop, you'll see that the gentleman sitting on the left end is Deacon Frank Tenorio, a deacon in the Catholic Church who has gotten a lot of mileage out of being anti-abortion. And so what they have done is that they have taken the issue to the very Bank of Guam, which, of course, as you know, is where Lulian Guerrero at least works. She is an equity participant in the Bank of Guam. She has been the president of the Bank of Guam, the chairman of the board of the Bank of Guam. She owns 40% of the shares in the Bank of Guam. She draws a $650,000 salary from the Bank of Guam. And I guess you'd have to say that she is so closely identified with the Bank of Guam that the symbolism of protesters on that corner in front of the bank is probably not lost on anyone. So I think it was just 2 weeks ago when I opined that it seemed kind of unusual that abortion being the hot button issue that it is, it hadn't been part of anyone's campaign. And I base that on a protest that was held at 7 churches on Sunday morning, an anti-abortion protest sponsored by the church. And as luck would have it, the very next day when I was opining about not hearing from Ray Tenorio on one of his numerous interviews on the steps of the courthouse, he said that it was his job to protect life. And then Ray has come out very strong anti-abortion since then. He's had print ads and made quite an issue of it. Now, I listen and I hear some people saying, well, you know, and I hear people say, it's really not that important of an issue to me. And Luann Guerrero being one of those people, I'm not a single issue candidate. I have other issues. And she said, I don't want to talk about that. It's an argument that nobody can win. I just don't want to talk about it, which is kind of interesting because Lou is, of course, a female, and in this age of identity politics, where the identity group that you belong to really is supposed to govern your political take on things, it's surprising because the identity, the female identity politics group is all for a woman's reproductive health, freedom of choice, which means that a woman should have an absolute right to abort the child she's carrying at just about any time. Lou goes a little farther and says that if there's a botched abortion and the child is actually born alive, the physician should not have a duty to keep the child alive. So, question that I'm posing out here to our international radio listening audience: how important an issue is it? And I'm going to read something from one of a female, a Democrat, a person who has held office as a Democrat and who has been an officer in the Democrat Party. And in response to Lou's, I'm not a single issue candidate, this I think is kind of relevant because this is from Narissa Underwood. Abortion, that single issue reveals our fundamental value about life, about who ultimately has authority in our life. It reveals what we might do if food was scarce, who gets to eat first. If a flood was to come, who gets the boat first? It reveals how we make decisions when the going gets tough. So that's one person's take on how important the issue is. And I mentioned that to Luann Guerrero, it is apparently only important amongst a certain, in a certain identity politics setting, because it's not something that she apparently is willing to take on with respect to the campaign. Of course, with respect to the campaign, she's not willing to take on any issues from Frank and Alicia, whatever Alicia's position is on abortion, because she's announced that if there is any forum, candidates forum, that where Frank and Alicia are going to show up, she's not going to participate. So I was all set to go to the Chamber's forum on Wednesday because the initial setup was that all three were going to discuss, debate, whatever, decline. But when Lou found out that Frank and Alicia were on the schedule, she said, if they come, I'm not coming. And the Chamber backed down and said, okay, we won't let them participate. Well, actually, the Chamber didn't say that. The Chamber said, okay, we won't have the forum, and instead they're going to have a senatorial forum. So I might go anyhow. It should be kind of interesting. So that's the first item on my card here. Deacon Tenorio versus Lou Leon Guerrero. Now, this is Deacon Tenorio, if you know him, is a stately old gentleman who has been hanging around the church for a long, long time. And, you know, when he comes out against Lou Leon Guerrero, I suspect there will be other people that would pay a certain amount of attention to that if someone of a different status were to come out and oppose Lou's stance on abortion. Next item on the card is Tom Fisher versus the GEC, the Attorney General, K-57, and Pat Seville. You recall that Tom is the lawyer for the Tenorio Uggan team, and he is Ray Tenorio's defense counsel in a case called People versus Tenorio that goes back to, by the way, it is Glock 70 plus 34 today, 34 days since charges were filed. So Tom Fisher represents is counsel for Ray Tenorio in that criminal case. And I've complimented him on his ability to get rehabilitative earned media for his client. His skill prompted me to consider him for the Joe Schlumka Award, but the real Joe kind of vetoed that. He didn't think he could find an appropriate sound effect for the Joe Schlumka Award, so we kind of had to let that one go. But Tom wrote a letter to the Attorney General questioning the prosecution of his client on the basis of timing and on the merits, and on the basis that the chief prosecutor in the Attorney General's office, a gentleman named McDonald, may have a conflict of interest. And in the process of writing that letter, which got broad press coverage, Tom Fisher was able to say good things about his client and his client's posture in the case. Tom did the same thing with the Election Commission when he, well, actually not such good things about his client, but some derogatory things about Lou Leon Guerrero, saying that for Lou Leon Guerrero to be governor would be an impermissible conflict of interest because the Bank of Guam, the government of Guam does its banking with the Bank of Guam, millions and millions of dollars, and there would be no way that Lou Leon Guerrero could insulate herself from that conflict of interest, even by stepping aside and let somebody else in her family run the bank. And once again, that got broad press coverage and was a forum for which everybody on the island found out that Lou Leon Guerrero has a lot of money. If the handful of people who didn't know that already. And then Tom also wrote a letter to another radio station. What was the name of that radio station? Do you remember, Real Joe Cruz?
I'm not aware.
Started with a K.
I'm not. I'm only aware of the point, sir.
Yeah, I think a K and a number K53. Oh, K57. That was it. Yeah, he wrote a letter to K57, accusing them of an impermissible bias in favor of Lou Leon Guerrero by giving her so much free airtime, and that his client ought to be entitled to the same thing. Well, talking about free airtime, we got a break coming up here, and I'll come back after the break and finish up this item, and then we'll go on to Chamorro versus Chamorro, Real Joe Cruz.
30 years ago, I moved to Guam from the Philippines to make a better life for my family. I worked hard every day. We struggled, but I was happy to do it for my kids. I will do anything to protect my family, but I don't feel safe. I don't see police patrolling the villages like I used to. Guam is not the same. Criminals are getting braver because They know we don't have enough police officers. The lieutenant governor says public safety is a priority. He's been in the office for 8 years and had the chance to do something to make us safer, but he didn't. I'm tired of empty promises. I want someone who's going to get the job done. That's why I'm voting for Lou and Josh. Sa Nobyembre 6, ako po ay boboto para kay Lou at Josh. At inaanyahan ko po kayong lahat na maniwala na mayroon tayong karapatan na maramdaman na ligtas ang pagboto sa kanila. Ako po si Bobby Gopez. Maraming salamat po.
I'm Lilian Guerrero and I approve this ad.
Paid for by the committees to elect Leon Guerrero Tenorio, Tony Sanford, Treasurer.
So, yeah, Lady D says she thought maybe Lou ought to give up one or the other before she ran for governor. Either run for governor or be a banker, but not kind of do both at the same time. Kind of like the David Cruz type of campaigning, isn't it, Denise? I'm going to hang on to this until after the election's over, and then we'll see how it develops. So back to Tom Fisher. He wrote a scathing letter to the management of K57, saying that they gave Lou Leon Guerrero so much free airtime that they ought to do the same thing for his client Ray Tenorio. K57 management came back with an et tu quoque, a fancy Latin phrase that you could add to your vocabulary, et tu quoque, which means, and you also, a kind of legalistic way of saying you did the same thing, as apparently Ray Tenorio bopped into the station unannounced and was accommodated by one of their hosts. So, but anyhow, the point here is that when Tom Fisher brought that to the attention of K57, once again, he got a lot of good earned media, and he was able to say positive things about his client. Well, the next item on that in that chapter, I've got some stuff that happened on Friday that made the news on Friday night and on Saturday. And, of course, I haven't had a chance to talk about it yet, but I will talk about it now. And that is that Fisher says that the chair of the Election Commission should recuse herself from matters dealing with his client because she's accepted money from Lou Leon Guerrero. And he brought forward some of the financials from the Leon Guerrero campaign that showed that the Leon Guerrero campaign paid Alice Tyron $540. And I don't think that was completely addressed at that time. And it appeared to be a reimbursement. And I suppose the innocent answer is, well, people go out and do things for the campaign and they turn in their receipts and they're reimbursed for it. And, the Election Commission is a partisan body anyhow. All of the members are appointed by the political parties. So, Alice Tyron is a Democrat and there's a Democrat running for governor. So what's the problem? But Tom Fisher says, collectively, they're supposed to act impartially. But how can we be confident she, meaning Tyrone, can act impartially when she's, in addition to being a proponent of Lou and Josh, a supporter, she's actually receiving money from them? The Lou and Josh campaign responded saying Tyrone is one of many who are reimbursed unless they specifically wish to make donations. They questioned the, quote, distraction from the real issues and suggested Fisher himself was conflicted for hundreds of thousands of business dealings with the government. The commission did not discuss the recusal issue, and Tyrone declined comment after the meeting. So I want to get my 2 cents worth in on this. Yes, the members of the commission are appointed by the governor upon nomination from the political parties. There are 3 from each party. The 6 then choose a 7th who's supposed to be neutral. In this case, it's a gentleman named Patrick Seville. And if you see his name in writing, you would be tempted to pronounce it civil. It looks kind of like the French version of the word civil. And I suppose he's well suited to that task, because his civility is usually in short supply at election commission meetings. And to watch Pat Seville, he is a very gentlemanly, civil type guy. However, this is my 2 cents worth. Yes, they are appointed by the parties, and the reason that they're appointed by the parties, in my estimation, is not because there is a thought process that says, yeah, the best guys to run the election are people nominated by the parties. That's not it. It's more of a default matter. In many, if not most of the states, elections are operated at the city and county level. And the really small town where I grew up in Wisconsin, you want to know how small that town is, Real Joe Cruz?
How small was it, sir?
It's so small that both city limit signs are posted on the same post. Yeah. If anybody asked how to get there, I'd say it's on Highway 12 near the big Shell station.
So Guam was probably a big move for you.
It's downtown for me, yeah, compared to that little bitty town. But in that little town, the city clerk runs the elections. The county clerk has a role in elections, and the Secretary of State has a role in elections, and they're all elected to the offices that they hold. And in Wisconsin, it goes elections. I think the Wisconsin election process, pretty good reputation. You don't hear a lot of bad things about Wisconsin. Now, of course, I grew up about 20 miles from the Illinois border, and you cross the border, and the situation changes very quickly. As far as, for instance, Chicago is, you've heard about, Real Joe, you've heard about these get out the vote campaigns. Doesn't matter who you vote for, but please get out the vote, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a little different in Chicago. In Chicago, the request is vote early and vote often. And there was a guy from Chicago who said, my grandpa voted Republican all of his life. He didn't start voting Democrat till after he died. So that's Illinois. It's 20 miles away. Quite a contrast. But so the elections run pretty well in Wisconsin. But if we tried to do that here, if we had an elected Secretary of State, people probably wouldn't put up with it because they'd say, well, he is a Democrat or he is a Republican, and therefore it won't be fair. So the thinking is that if you match it head-to-head, Democrat to Republican, with the one neutral civil party, that it will be fair. Not that it's such a great way to run anything. I can't imagine anybody sitting down and trying to run something complicated and say, I know how we'll run this complicated operation. We'll choose a board, half of them from each of the political parties, and let them do it. So I hear you, Joe, Real Joe, you're playing Take 5 again, so we'll take a short break and we'll come back to Tom Fisher versus the GEC.
point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The caravan of migrants moves closer to the U.S. border. I'm Ann Carrick, Fox News. Mexican agents blocking the Central American migrants briefly before allowing them in at the southern border. Fox's William LaJeunesse.
The questions as we go forward, number one, how will they get to the U.S.? Bus, maybe a train, or try to walk? That's going to take a long time, 1,400 miles. Secondly, where are they going to go? Texas, Arizona, California, they don't know, we don't know. Thirdly, what's going to happen when they ask for asylum?
Mexicans sympathetic to the migrants offering rides, food, water, and clothing. Hurricane Willa, a Category 5 storm now, is approaching Mexico's Pacific coast, likely to hit between Mazatlan and Puerto Vallarta. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, harshly criticized by President Trump, who said there's been deception and lies after the Saudi government's explanation changed regarding the death of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. During an exclusive interview with Fox's Brett Baer, Saudi Foreign Minister Adel Al-Jubeir tried again to explain.
We're not an authoritarian government, we're a monarchy. We have our checks and balances, we have our systems. The individuals who did this outside the scope of their authority. There obviously was a tremendous mistake made, and what compounded the mistake was the attempt to try to cover up. That is unacceptable in any government.
The kingdom initially denied being involved in Khashoggi's death, now Riyadh acknowledging it. CBS interim chairman Richard Parsons is stepping down due to illness. Strauss Zelnick, CEO and chairman of Take-Two Interactive Software, is the new replacement. CBS says Parsons was dealing with multiple myeloma when he joined the board, but unanticipated complications prompted his doctors to advise he cut back on commitments. Parsons was named interim after Les Moonves. This is Fox News.
For over 30 years, Sanford Technology Group has been helping companies throughout Guam and Micronesia with their payroll, time and attendance, networking, and other information technology services. Our online integrated payroll and time and attendance solution provides the workforce management tools and expertise to make your business more efficient and employee-friendly. For more information, visit Sanford Technology at 335 South Marine Corps Drive or call us at 647-0220 to schedule a demo today. Sanford Technology.
President Barack Obama is campaigning in Nevada for Democrats ahead of midterms. Former Vice President Joe Biden was there over the weekend.
It is unusual for a former president to hit the campaign trail while his immediate successor is in office. But last month, President Obama was in Pennsylvania, stumping for Governor Tom Wolf and Senator Bob Casey.
I came here to deliver a very simple message, and that is to vote. My message, Pennsylvania, is vote.
Today, he campaigns at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, to stump for Congresswoman Jackie Rosen. She's running against Dean Heller for his Senate seat. Last month, Obama was in Anaheim, California, campaigning for several Democrats who are hoping to flip 7 House seats currently held by Republicans, and some of those districts are considered toss-ups. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
The midterm elections is setting some records.
Election day is 2 weeks from tomorrow, and already fundraising records have been set.
Money is a good stand-in for voter enthusiasm. I mean, I like to look at how much money people raise as a sign for how much energy is in their district for that candidate.
And Josh Kroshauer is political editor for National Journal and says that money can foreshadow a surprise, especially in House races.
And if you have Democratic candidates across the board raising good money, you may see a handful of races that we never saw coming, where Democrats end up picking up a seat in pretty conservative territory.
In Washington, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
Speaking of money, lottery fever is alive and well. Fox's Garnell Scott.
This week's Powerball drawing starts at $620 million. That drawing will come on Wednesday. If you can't wait that long, there's another game you can play. Mega Millions is up to a whopping $1.6 billion.
Brisk sales could push Mega Millions to a record-setting $2 billion. I'm Ann Carrick, and this is Fox News.
30 years ago, I moved to Guam from the Philippines to make a better life for my family. I work hard every day. We struggled, but I was happy to do it for my kids. I will do anything to protect my family, but I don't feel safe. I don't see police patrolling the villages like I used to. Guam is not the same. Criminals are getting braver because they know we don't have enough police officers. The Lieutenant Governor says public safety is a priority. He's been in the office for 8 years and had the chance to do something to make us safer, but he didn't. I'm tired of empty promises. I want someone who's going to get the job done. That's why I'm voting for Lou and Josh. Sa Nobyembre 6, ako po ay boboto para kay Lou at Josh. At inaanyahan ko po kayong lahat na maniwala na mayroon tayong karapatan na maramdaman na ligtas ang pagboto sa kanila. Ako po si Bobby Gopez. Maraming salamat po.
I'm Lilian Guerrero, and I approve this ad.
Paid for by the committees to elect Leon Guerrero Tenorio, Tony Sanford, Treasurer.
Jeff's Pirates Cove, open daily at 8 a.m., serving up hot breakfast with endless coffee and a taste of history.
Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959. Now you can start planning for the holidays by getting a personal Christmas loan from $1,000 up to $3,500. Family Finance has 3 convenient locations to serve you. Give them a call in Dededo, 633-4473, Hagåtña, 475-4545, and the Upper Tumon location on the 2nd floor of the Pacific Building at 647-5626. Get your Christmas loans today from Family Finance.
Life is too short to be isolated from the people you love. Hearing loss is the invisible disability. The experts at Guam Hearing Doctors have solutions.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
Tall Tales is brought to you by Sanford Technology Group, STG, delivering service that can't be beat.
At Guam Regional Medical City, it is our mission to become the island's premier choice for specialty care, like cardiology, pulmonology, neurosciences, orthopedics, oncology services, and more. We aim to protect our island from heart attacks, strokes, cancer, and diabetic complications. But should you suffer from such diseases, we're ready with world-class options, both inpatient and outpatient. For more information, visit us at grmc.gu.
Well, here we are after that exciting halftime show. Maria Espinosa, I'm glad you got on board in time to see that exciting halftime show that we have every day here at 5 o'clock. The marching bands, the drill teams, the synchronized card sections in the grandstand, the acrobats, the fire eaters, and that barrage of cannon fire at the end of the show. Pretty exciting. So it gave me a chance to kind of check out some of the Facebook comments here. And let's see, Brad says, where was that? Ray Tenorio waltzed into K57 like he owned the place, same as Frank did twice last week at the Point. Maybe Tom can also complain about Frank. Well, it could be. I don't know that it's the waltzing that is offensive to Tom or the pre-planned appearance that is ringing his bell. But I can tell you one thing for certain. Last week on Friday, I was awarded the coveted curmudgeon badge by our Carl. And our Carl said that Frank Uggan wouldn't try waltzing in on Tall Tales because of the in-attendance curmudgeon there. Talking about me. So, yeah, he probably got a pretty good point there. So, I don't know if having a curmudgeon on the air insulates you from allegations of political favoritism or not, but you'll notice very seldom that a politician calls Tall Tales, and I've never had one in the studio. And if you want to know the reason why, my suspicion is that no politician wants to submit himself to the withering cross-examination that would arise if he were to, or if she were to, submit his or herself to the jurisdiction of Tall Tales. So that's kind of my take on that one. And let's see. Lady D used to live in Zion, Illinois. It's the cornerstone of Illinois, right up there in the top right-hand corner of Illinois. The best thing about Zion is it's only a couple miles from the Wisconsin border, right, D? And then Dave Duenas comes along with the facts. Dave says, just the facts. Gutierrez Bordallo endorsing Lou and John. Mayor of Dededo endorsing Lou and Josh. Our Congresswoman Madeline Bordallo definitely endorsing Lou and Josh. And just minutes ago, the Guam Federation of Teachers endorsed Lou and Josh. Those are the facts. And then we have Dave Duenas' evaluation. Change is coming. Well, that's interesting that the Guam Federation of Teachers would endorse Lou and Josh. I suppose some of these stories that we hear, about the Democrat Party in the mainland, that all of the big money folks are kind of get together at election time. I suppose that the Guam Federation of Teachers will make a statement as to their endorsement. And then Brad says, as with any, Lady D says, I smell lots of political appointees. And Brad says, as with any new administration, hate that it happens. Unfortunately, it's a way of life here. Well, on that very same note, during Frank's first waltz into the Point when he was on the air with Ray, there was a dialogue involving Ray and Lou said on the air, paraphrasing, I tried to get Frank on board with the campaign, and I told him that I could find him a position in our administration if we won. So there you go, right there on the air on the Ray Gibson show. So I think I picked up a lot of. Oh yeah, and then so a little math from Rico. That let's see. I'm sorry, Ismail Velez. BOG is a 3-star bank worth over $2 billion. If someone owns 40% of a company, isn't that $800 million? That's a lot of money. Yeah, and then right underneath that, GFT endorses Lou and Josh. So keep those Facebook comments coming. They are perspicacious, enjoyable, entertaining. They provide decent entertainment. and help me constantly improve the focus of Tall Tales. So going back to the Election Commission, Tom Fisher says, you know, you're on the Election Commission. You shouldn't be taking money from any of the candidates. And just at the beginning of the halftime show, I explained why the commission is set up the way it is, not because anybody thought, ooh, it would really be a great way to operate as something as complicated as an election. Just round up people, have a commission that's half of each party. It's not a very efficient way of doing things, but it's kind of the default way because we couldn't put a single person in charge because the public wouldn't put up with it. They'd say that person is not going to be fair because he's going to be rooting for this candidate or that candidate or these candidates or those. So we're kind of stuck with a bipartisan election commission and Patrick Seville. And it hasn't worked very well. The commission is supposed to operate every function of the election, which is not a very good way of going about things. And in addition to that, the commission has sort of quasi-judicial functions. Entertaining, in other words, if there is a campaign violation under Title III, Chapter 8, the commission is supposed to adjudicate that violation. In my own experience, they did a horrible job of that. They subpoenaed some documents, they sat around, passed some papers around, based their decision on papers submitted only by John Flores, and came up with a cryptic ruling. The Troy Torres matter was even worse, where Troy submitted a colorable claim under Chapter 8, and they came back and said, well, we can't decide that. We don't have jurisdiction. It's under Chapter 17, and those things are confidential, so we can't even tell you why we don't have jurisdiction. So I'm gonna wrap on this a little bit more, but I've got Maria on the line. I don't want to keep her waiting too long. Hi, Maria.
Hi. Yes, I can't stay too long either. I just I sent a message to the chairperson of the pro-life committee, Mary Lou, and she's not feeling well, and she just asked me to make a call to explain. I know that the decision was made with the survey to wait until after the primary, and that's the reason why they didn't actually send Frank Uggan a survey, but his response was quote, unsolicited, and only his was submitted. Alicia was always silent and never responded to pro-life inquiries made to her verbally, unquote. And then with regards to they discovered they made a mistake with the report. Amanda Shelton and Ms. Paris in the Democratic side, they did not respond to the survey. And if you look at the report, they were said to have reported no, they would not support the bill. So she asked me to let you know and let the listeners know that those two women did not respond to the survey at all.
Did you hear Tim Rohr's call, Maria?
No, the reception over the radio is so bad, and it took a while for Facebook to kick in, so I couldn't really understand what he was saying.
Well, let me repeat it because it comes back to your group, and that is
I don't represent the group because I did actually resign around late July or something. So, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, you said you are calling on behalf of who?
Mary Lou Martinez.
And her position is what?
Repeat.
What is Mary Lou's position?
She's the chairperson.
Okay, well, you might want to take this back to the chairperson then.
Yes.
Tim called and said that the questionnaire was improperly worded because the words pain capable were left out of the question. And Tim took some responsibility for that himself, and he said the question should have been, would you vote for a bill to ban abortion at 30 weeks, as you were 20 weeks, if you knew that the unborn child was pain capable at that point? But without the pain capable, it really changes the complexion of the question. And I speculated a little bit myself as to why Alicia didn't want to respond, but I won't go through that again.
Oh.
So you might want to communicate that to the chairperson here, because that does really change the complexion of the question. Because Maria, right now we know that it would be unconstitutional to enact a statute that banned abortion at 20 weeks, but a majority of the states have climbed onto this pain-capable angle.
Yes, right.
So that's the key. And that survey left the words pain-capable out, so you might pass that on.
Yes, I can't comment to that because I was not part of the final decision on the wording and all. I understand what happened prior, up until around late July. So I will convey that information to her. And I would like to call you back later, but right now I really have to attend to something really urgent. Thank you, Bob, for your time.
Anytime, Maria. Thanks for calling. So that was the lady who was in that picture along with Deacon Tenorio on the street corner at the Bank of Guam, Maria Espinosa. So back to the Election Commission. So the members of the Election Commission are not there just to further the ends of their own political party. They also have an adjudicative function. They are to adjudicate violations of the election law in Chapter 8 and violation of the campaign finance law, Chapter 17. And I went into it the other day about the confidentiality of campaign finance violations, and those are only to be begun by a written complaint to the signed before a notary public, forwarded to the commission, and that until the commission determines that there's probable cause to consider that there is a campaign violation, everything is confidential. So I had an item on the card here the other day, Curious Kin versus Andre Bainham, I believe it was, or maybe it was Frank Uggan. Curious Kin, it was Frank Uggan. Curious Kin versus Frank Uggan, because he says he's accepting money and he's doing this, and I'm going to bring it before the commission, et cetera, et cetera. Well, according to the commission's statute, he's not supposed to do that. If he were aggrieved, he should be like everybody else, submit a sworn complaint to the commission, and shut up. Now, I know that's asking for a lot from Curious Kin. My own experiences with the commission were pretty much like the things that Ken Leon Guerrero has been complaining about, that the words arbitrary and capricious, if you don't know what arbitrary and capricious means, look up the words election commission in the dictionary, and you'll find that it's mentioned quite prominently there. So I think that when it comes to members of the commission, they're not like everybody else. They should never take money from one of the candidates, no matter what it's for. Even if it's a wager on a Cubs baseball game, they shouldn't take money that has to be reported as long as they're sitting on that commission. They should be like Caesar's wife. They should be pure. So I think Tom Fisher smacked one pretty hard there, because he's absolutely right. But the entire culture, quote unquote, of the Election Commission seems to be one of mind over matter. It appears that they don't mind and the people that come before them with complaints really don't matter. So then, going on, earlier the commission also decided it did not have jurisdiction over conflict of interest allegations raised by Fisher. Now, a little earlier I mentioned the letter from Tom Fisher to the commission about Lulian Guerrero's obvious conflicts of interest if she were governor, and Fisher asked, can you determine whether it would be ethical for her to be governor of Guam? And that was one of the Tom Fisher communications that put him up for the Joe Schlumka Award, because it got good press and it put Lulian Guerrero in a somewhat unfavorable light. So the commission has decided it did not have jurisdiction over the conflict of interest allegations raised by Fisher. He submitted a long list relating to Lulian Guerrero's ownership stake in the Bank of Guam, complaining they would be a direct conflict should she become governor. The GEC says, I don't know, here we go again. The GEC says, did they say it like a barbershop quartet? Did they all say the same thing at the same time in harmony, like in the Music Man or something like that? Or did a person say that? The GEC says that should be under the purview of an ethics commission. And independent Commissioner Patrick Seville also took strong exception to the move. Now, explaining here, I also have the Post story on the same thing. And the Post says the commission addressed the matter Friday. Legal counsel Vince Camacho said he did not believe GEC had jurisdiction to answer the question. So I guess it was Vince Camacho instead of the election commission constituting itself into a 7-person choir and singing these words in harmony. Legal counsel Vince Camacho did not believe GEC had jurisdiction to answer the question. Guam election law tasks the commission with determining a candidate's eligibility and ensuring a candidate has not committed a felony or crime of moral turpitude, Camacho said. I cannot find anything in the Election Commission statute which would give the commission any authority with regard to someone who wins the election and is seated in an elected position. What I did find was that the standard of conduct for elected officials falls under the purview of the Guam Ethics Commission, and it's this commission which I believe should be able to answer Fisher's question. So, you know, every once in a while, even the Election Commission gets it right. The Election Commission does not have jurisdiction to determine the answer to Fisher's question, nor to even give an advisory opinion on Fisher's question. So I'm going to come back here. Make sure you got your Law and Order notebooks handy when we come back from this short break. Which is actually the 7th inning stretch already, Joe? Wow, time flies so fast here on Tall Tales. So when we come back from the 7th inning stretch, we'll wrap up Tom Fisher versus the Election Commission.
"30 years ago, I moved to Guam from the Philippines to make a better life for my family. I worked hard every day. We struggled, but I was happy to do it for my kids. I will do anything to protect my family, but I don't feel safe. I don't see police patrolling the villages like I used to. Guam is not the same. Criminals are getting braver because they know we don't have enough police officers. The Lieutenant Governor says public safety is a priority. He's been in the office for 8 years and had the chance to do something to make us safer, but he didn't. I'm tired of empty promises. I want someone who's going to get the job done. That's why I'm voting for Lou and Josh. Sa Nobyembre 6, Ako po ay boboto para kay Lou at Josh. At inaanyahan ko po kayong lahat na maniwala na mayroon tayong karapatan na maramdaman na ligtas ang pagboto sa kanila. Ako po si Bobby Gopez. Maraming salamat po.
I'm Lilian Guerrero, and I approve this ad.
Paid for by the committees who elect Leon Guerrero Tenorio, Tony Sanford, Treasurer.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
A couple of months ago, in Extra Point number 138, I introduced the idea of compiling two books. One, the Book of Do, and the other, the Book of Don't. I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, if you've got them, prepare to make some additions to that Book of Don't.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point by Jerry Roberts at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts on The Ray Gibson Show on 93.3 The Point.
So Wrigley's not that far from either Waukegan or Zion, Illinois, Lady D. Probably 50 miles from Zion, I'd say, as the crow flies, if he were to fly that way. So back to this article here about Fisher and the Election Commission. Fisher asks this question: where can a citizen go when they have a grievance? This is the election, so this seems like the obvious body in the absence of an impaneled Guam Ethics Commission. Now, those who have been following know that nobody's ever been appointed to the Ethics Commission and confirmed. So although it's been on the books ever since, it's never actually arisen. So that's Tom's question. Now, Patrick Seville, I didn't see this on TV. I wonder if he was civil as he said this. But Patrick Seville said, the GEC said that it should be under the purview of the Ethics Commission, and independent commissioner Patrick Seville also took strong exception to the move. Poorly written article, but when they say the move, what they're saying is Fisher's comments. What they mean is, using this platform here with all the cameras to make a campaign statement, and I think it's an abuse of why we're here. So in other words, Seville is saying, you know, we don't have jurisdiction to do this, but you know there are cameras here and that there's media coverage, and he said that it's an abuse of why the Election Commission is there. Well, I'd like to stick up for the Election Commission, but it's not an easy job. Now let's turn for a moment to the question that Fisher raises. And the Election Commission does not have jurisdiction to do anything to anyone after the ink is dry on their election certificates. And with respect to the governor, even if there were an ethics commission impaneled, I'm going to make the statement that the ethics commission could have no role in anything that looked like sanctioning the governor's conduct. In other words, punishing the governor. I don't think the Ethics Commission could fine him, could suspend him from duty, etc., because the governor is an Organic Act office, and the Organic Act would tell you what you could do with the governor if and if it's not in the Organic Act, then you can't do anything to the governor. And the only thing the Organic Act says you could do to a naughty governor is you can recall him. And there are a couple of different ways for recall, but that's it. So that Ethics Commission could have no power whatsoever over the governor, nor a senator, because once again, a senator is the office created by the Organic Act. Now, the legislature has its own Ethics Commission committee, and it has the ability to discipline its members itself. Theoretically, a member of a senator could be expelled from the legislature by the members of the legislature. So that's your law and part of your law and order moment. That even if there were an ethics commission impaneled, it would have no jurisdiction over questions such as this. What it possibly could do would be to issue reports that censured the governor. But, you know, you don't need to have a commission and all of the trappings that go with a commission to do that. You can do that right here in Tall Tales. If you don't like to see the governor parading around in a soldier's uniform, all you got to do is be the host of Tall Tales, and you can censure him right here on the air. And those of you out in our Facebook audience can pretty much do the same thing. So the Ethics Commission's powers lie only with those offices created by territorial law, not created by the Organic Act. That's part of the law and order moment for today. The other part is this: in that same Ethics Act, there is a code and there are other provisions that are the law now, even in the absence of a commission. And at 15 GCA 15207, there is a section that says contracts voidable. In addition to any other penalty provided by law, any contract entered into by the territory in violation of this chapter. Now, the chapter has provisions for conflicts of interest and other misdealings. Any in violation of this chapter is voidable by the territory, provided that in any act to void a contract pursuant to this section, the interests of third parties who may be damaged thereby shall be taken into account, and the action to avoid the transaction is initiated within 90 days after the determination of a violation of this chapter. The Attorney General shall have the authority to enforce this provision. So given that, you know, if you are really concerned about Lulian Guerrero and her role with the bank, you want to be very careful in your selection of an Attorney General, because the way I read 15207, that would be a pretty interesting way of dealing with conduct on the part of the governor that does not pass ethical muster. So I've got Jerry calling in here. Good afternoon, Jerry.
Good afternoon, Senator Klitzkie. I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
Scenario. A classified employee has a political sign on his personal vehicle.
On his personal table?
Vehicle.
Uh-huh.
Does that violate any Hatch Act?
I don't think so, Jerry.
Okay. Just I'm curious. I just saw the acting fire chief with a political sign on his truck.
Well, if it's a fire truck, then yeah. But if it's his own POV, Probably not. Now, if it's the assistant fire chief, did you say?
Yes.
I wonder which candidate he's stumping for.
That would be Tenorio.
Wow. Wow, I should have been able to figure that out myself, right, Jerry?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being one of our tall tales watchdogs out there, Jerry. It's observant citizens that are really important for the functioning of our democracy. So you've done your part today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
So, you know, Real Joe Cruz, we do live in a democracy, but what is the role of a citizen in a democracy?
Active and informed citizenship. It's not just a right, it's a duty.
Okay, well, I guess Jerry conformed his duties under... Where did you pick up that line?
I think it was Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan.
You're something of a presidential scholar, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I had dinner with him once.
Okay, well, very good. All right. So, as I was concluding this matter of the Election Commission and its inability to do anything with respect to any ethical conflict on the part of a gubernatorial candidate or a seated governor, I did provide the caveat that under this section that I just read, 15208, as you were 15207, contracts voidable, the Office of Attorney General could become extremely important when it comes to any potential conflicts of interest on the part of a governor. So as you're deciding who you want to be your Attorney General, you might want to work that into your thought process. So that ends that item on the card, which is Tom Fisher versus the Election Commission. It was a series of Tom Fisher items on the card: the Election Commission, the Attorney General, K-57, and I suppose I should reverse it, Pat Seville versus Tom Fisher, but we've disposed of that item. Next item, I made a mistake. I made a wrong mistake, Real Joe Cruz. Yeah. The next item is not Chamorro versus Chamorro. It's Andre versus the Civil Service Commission.
I see.
And Curious Kin. Well, I've talked about Curious Kin already, so I'll just take that off. But the Civil Service Commission on Friday announced that the staff, now these are the most important parts of these commissions, you know. It's not the commission board, and I'm still waiting to see what a commission board looks like, although our news turkeys here use that phrase all the time. Well, the Chamorro Land Trust Commission board decided, well, if it's a commission, it's a commission. It ain't a board. If you're looking for a board, try the Board of Education. So the Civil Service Commission staff decided that there is a claim that ought to be investigated, filed by Troy Torres. And I guess if an informed and active citizenship is citizenry is what we're looking for, not just a right, it's a duty. I guess Troy complies with that duty because he's out there. And he complained about Andre Bainum violating the so-called Hatch Act by impermissible activity for the campaign of Frank Uggan and Alicia Limtiaco. And there is a report online. It came out with one of the news articles on Friday night. I read it. It doesn't tell you much at all. It's just pretty much a repeat of everything that we already knew. The part I zero in on is on item 6, recommendation. And this is what it says. Based on concerns and documents submitted to this office by Mr. Torres and the mention of Mr. Bainum's affiliation with Mr. Frank Uggan and Ms. Alicia Limtiaco candidates for office and the possibility of solicitation of funds, it's recommended that an investigation be conducted. So you've heard me rant and rave about doing the right thing for the wrong reason. Here we go again. I think that the Civil Service Commission is going to do the right thing for the wrong reason. And when I say the right thing, if you read through Troy's complaint, he colorably states violation of the election law. In other words, you can't look at it and say it's frivolous on its face or that he doesn't state the elements of a violation. But here's the recommendation. Based on the concerns and documents submitted to this office and the mention of Mr. Bainham's affiliation with Frank and Alicia, okay, is mentioning the affiliation with them, is that what it takes to kick off an investigation? And then it says candidates for office. Well, you heard my read-in about whether or not Frank and Alicia were candidates, and I maintain that they weren't. Now, possibly, it depends on whether or not they've accepted money and filed reports. And I went through a pretty detailed explanation of the law on that point. But it takes a little bit more than a couple of lay people saying that they're candidates for public office and the possibility of solicitation of funds. It is recommended that an investigation be conducted. Well, if they were to look at the papers and articulate the facts in such a manner that the reader would say, yes, there's probable cause to think that an investigation should be conducted, I would say it's the right thing for the right reason. But reading this recommendation and reading the rest of the report, no. And this is my analysis. This is signed by Maria P. Masnayan, Personnel Management Analyst 3, and Roland P. Farring, Personnel Management Administrator, and Peter S. Calvo, Executive Director. That's my analysis, is that these folks are in over their heads. In other words, they really don't know what they're doing. I don't carry much of a brief for the Civil Service Commission. I'm not going to get into it much now, but I'll give you a recent example. BJ made it known that he was going to run for public auditor. And if he were elected, he would resign as Speaker of the Legislature. Well, when BJ made that announcement, the next question was, well, who is going to be the next public auditor? And one of the people that was mentioned prominently was Yuko, I'm sorry, I've got this backwards. Doris announced that she was resigning as public auditor, Doris Brooks, because she was going to run for Washington rep. So the question arose after that, well, who's going to be the next public auditor? And Yuko is, I believe, the deputy public auditor, and there was a lot of speculation. Well, Yuko would be pretty good at it. Forget what I said about BJ. And so Yuko was considering it, but then she said that she wasn't going to do it because she'd been advised by the Civil Service Commission that if she were a candidate, she'd have to resign from her job. And that's just dead wrong. I'm going to come back to that as we go into the home stretch. This may be the last item on the card that I can handle. So be right back for the home stretch.
Meet all the candidates up close and personal and find out why they deserve your vote. On Saturday, October 27th, you can meet them face-to-face during Micronesia Mall's One-on-One with the candidates. From 1 to 4 p.m., you can ask the tough questions, exchange views, express your concerns, or just get to know your candidates better. Hosted by Ray Gibson and broadcast on 93.3 The Point with the Facebook Live feed courtesy of Shooting Star Productions. Go one-on-one with the candidates, Saturday, October 27th, only at Micronesia Mall.
So here we are in the home stretch at Tall Tales. We got about 10 more minutes till we'll hear the plaintive strains of Ravel's Bolero playing in the background with a rising volume to the point that it drowns out my voice. And then I'll pack up and head out of here until tomorrow morning. So I think these folks are in over their heads. Because Yuko came back and said, well, I was told by Civil Service Commission, and once again, the mental image, 7 people lined up there speaking perhaps in rhymes in unison saying, Yuko, if you run for office, you're going to have to resign your position with the Civil Service Commission. And that was just dead wrong. And I'll explain. I explained on the air why it was wrong. I'll do it again. The so-called Mini-Hatch Act applies to the employees of the executive and judicial branches. Doesn't apply to the legislative branch. But if you look at the organic statute for the public auditor, it's not in Title V with government organizations. It's in Title I, general provisions. And the language there says that the public auditor is not part of the executive branch. It's not part of the legislative branch. It's not part of the judicial branch. Now, the right procedural challenge would certainly hold that the public auditor is in the executive branch. But if you were to apply the Mini-Hatch Act, you would not be able to make a case stick under the Mini-Hatch Act because of that language that says that the public auditor is not in the executive branch. So maybe just for that one limited purpose, that statute would work. And what it meant was that Yuko could run for office and not have to resign her position. But she was given that information by, quote, Civil Service Commission. So apparently they're in the habit of just kind of leaning on the counter and giving opinions to people on subjects that they really should not be opining on. So this is not a job for amateurs, and that's kind of what is worrisome here. If I were Andre, because my analysis is that the time that Andre was doing what it was that he was doing, at the time the complaint was filed, Frank Uggan was not a candidate. And I don't know if he is a candidate right now. Now, this is one of those where, well, you know, everybody knows he's putting up signs and holding rallies, etc. But you got to work through several code sections in Title III before you can determine that a person is a candidate. And to me, the simple answer is that when he accepts $100 and has to file a report, then maybe he's a candidate, but not before that. So if I were Andre, I'd be concerned that this thing will be fumbled so badly by people who really don't know what it is that they're about, that it may be very difficult for him to get out from under this. And I have to admit that I am not a fan of the Civil Service Commission. I haven't been for a long, long time, which sometime I probably ought to put on my list of default topics when I run out of other things to talk about. I could spend a little time talking about the Civil Service Commission. So you'll recall that that this arose after Ken Leon Guerrero and Andre came out and said that they were dissatisfied with the primary election and that it was time to write in Frank and Alicia. Now, everything that we've been told and everything that we've heard, and I don't have any reason to doubt this, there's no coordination between Ken's group and Frank and Alicia, or between Andre's group and Frank and Alicia. So, you know, one of the rules that everybody does know, except maybe these folks up here at the Civil Service Commission, is that a political action committee can raise funds and can spend money on political advertisements so long as there's no coordination between the political action committee and the candidate. In other words, if a political action committee wanted to run campaign ads that said, Ray Tenorio is such a poor shot, he couldn't hit a bull in the ass with a bass fiddle, they could do that so long as they didn't coordinate it with Lou or Frank. If, however, they sit down with one of the candidates, if they sat down with Frank and said, hey, Frank, we got a couple $100,000 worth of money we can spend on political ads. Let's talk about your platform and let's see how we can do some ads that'll benefit you. Then you got a campaign violation. But, you know, going back to Yuko and the question, the answer that they gave Yuko was wrong because they hadn't figured out what the question was. And so often we find that with boards and commissions that they have an abundance of answers. They haven't taken the time, however, to figure out what the questions are and see if their answers fit any of the questions available. The answers are obviously much more important. We'll have to be following that pretty closely with the Civil Service Commission to see where it goes. I think the next item on the calendar is the Civil Service Commission is supposed to consider the recommendations of staff on Thursday. And you recall staff at the Election Commission had to overrule Maria Pangilinan on how to compile the 2% threshold for a runoff election. So sometimes I'm afraid that staff is given far more credit for expertise than what it actually is entitled to. And of course, the Civil Service Commission is seven men, good and true. They're lay people. They're not lawyers, or they don't have any particular expertise. Now, don't accuse me of sexism when I say 7 men, good and true. It's from an old saying. And men in that particular situation means humans of either sex. Although I suppose saying, just limiting it to 2 sexes would even be labeled as sexist in this area of non-binaryism. It's kind of like we're back to group politics again. So I've got just about 2 minutes left on the clock today, and pretty much said everything that I wanted to say about Andre versus the Civil Service Commission. So I'll talk just a little bit about Chamorro versus Chamorro, although I'm not going to get very far into it. I'll probably put it on for tomorrow. And this is based on a column, an editorial or an op-ed piece in the Post for yesterday, written by Laura Sauder. And Laura Sauder makes the best arguments that she can make for the Chamorro orthography, where the word Chamorro is spelled like this: capital C, capital H, O, M, U, R. Let's see, how is it spelled? C-H-A-M-O-R-U. So it's a U on the end instead of an O. And I started on this the other day and pointed out that this one doesn't pass the common sense test, that we should not engage in too unfamiliarities when we're trying to help people learn a language. And at the same time, I also mentioned that the way to do that, if we're really interested in the survival of the Chamorro language, having a government commission in charge of it probably isn't the way to go. Enough of that. I'll see you tomorrow.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Hurricanes and earthquakes. I'm Ann Carrick, Fox News. Extremely dangerous is how forecasters are describing Hurricane Willa.